Today's discussion will be presented in 3 sections since we are recording this session for a radio broadcast on Federal News Radio 1500 AM. Feel free to post questions and comments during the session and we'll try to get them answered online. We're particularly pleased to welcome our moderator, Tom Temin, host of Federal Drive on Federal News Radio 1500 AM. Let me turn over the reins to Tom to begin today's discussion.
Welcome and thanks for joining us. Our guests today are Bill Ley. He's Deputy Chief Information Officer for Information Assurance and Chief Information Security Officer at the State Department. John Skidlarek is the Deputy Chief Information Officer at the FCC. Tom Bayer, Chief Information Officer at the Securities Exchange Commission, and Gary Buchanan, Chief of the Risk Management Division at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, joined by Eric Chu, the co-founder and president of HITRUST, and it's great to have you all on. So our topic today is virtualization and, more importantly, the challenges in cybersecurity that go with virtualization. So why don't we start by getting kind of a scene-setting state of affairs right now in the federal government as far as virtualization goes, how virtualized your agencies are, what kinds of things you have virtualized, and what you're thinking about doing in the future. Why don't we start with John at the FCC?
Well, sure. Thanks, Tom. So we have a mix of virtualized and non-virtualized applications. When our CIO, David Bray, got there just about a year ago, he discovered that we had over 200 applications, and some of them are running on Cold Fusion, have Sybase databases, are systems that don't readily lend themselves to virtualization, but in our environment. So we still have a number of physical servers running, but where we've been able to, we have stood up virtual servers, and for some of our newer enterprise applications, we're virtualized. We've also recently done a virtual desktop implementation so that we're now running virtualized desktops at the headquarters and moving them out to our field locations.
Okay, so you're maybe halfway there is a good way to put it.
Notionally, if not numerically.
All right, good. And Bill Ley at the State Department, lots of applications, people all over the world, certainly.
Yes, we've actually had a fair number of years' experience with virtualizing both our database and our office automation infrastructure. We've got quite a bit of Oracle and Microsoft virtualized systems, primarily for our databases that support anything from passport production to our payroll to financial systems. And a lot of our office automation, a lot of the Microsoft stack is virtualized. And a lot of that is to provide worldwide operations. It was just too cumbersome to try to have dedicated servers for all the applications in 200 different countries.
And if you virtualize, then you can kind of locate applications close to where people are and maybe take back some of the network traffic and costs associated with that.
Yes, absolutely. Most of our databases are based here in the continental United States. We do have some regionalized, but the idea is to try to centralize, not distribute to every post around the world.
All right, and Tom Bayer at SEC is one of those agencies like others that run, basically, you are all about data. Mm-hmm. And so what's the virtualization picture there?
So we've moved very aggressively to virtualize our systems. We are about 95% virtualized, and we operate both our infrastructure in a virtualized setting. We are also moving to our desktops as well. We are piloting a VDI desktop, or virtual desktop infrastructure, and that will allow us to move very quickly in supporting new applications and reloading applications. And so we believe very much in virtualization because it allows us to reduce our costs, total cost of ownership, allows us to refresh faster, and it also allows us to rebuild the environment and patch it at a much more aggressive rate.
Okay, patching and refresh. We're going to get more into that because that's when we get to the cybersecurity piece. Gary, at the NGA, I guess we'll call it, fewer syllables. I don't know whether you're on the very leading edge of what IT is doing or you hang back for safety purposes.
So I think that we really had an opportunity about 4 years ago. NGA was located at 3 major facilities in the Washington metropolitan area. And we had a chance to bring everything together at our new Campus East down in Springfield, Virginia. when we did that, we had the opportunity to virtualize a lot of our systems, certainly our enterprise systems, our corporate applications. Where we still need some work in virtualization is our mission systems. We have systems that were built 10, 15 years ago that simply won't support virtualization. So NGA needs to continue to make the decision of whether we're going to continue to support the legacy systems or retire them. For the future, we're a major contributor in the iSight initiative. That's the ICITE initiative, where we're virtualizing many more applications across the intelligence community through both our government cloud and a commercial cloud that involves all the members of the intelligence community.
Okay, so we have a picture of varying somewhat across the board, but still pretty deep in virtualization. Eric, what do you see from your point of view, looking at the government as a whole?
Yeah, no, the panelists are very much resonating with what we see in terms of the government market. You typically see a lot of government agencies and quite frankly commercial organizations. I think the statistics around 65% virtualized, but mileage can vary anywhere between 25% to upwards of 95%. And it's really driven by the agility, the cost savings, the efficiency that virtualization enables. At the same time, what we see is that those organizations are very quickly realizing that virtualization also concentrates risk, because essentially what you're doing is you're taking what used to be lots of separate physical systems that had their own configurations, their own separate management consoles, their own separate group of experts that manage them, and you're collapsing all that functionality onto a single software layer, really where any virtualization admin can access any VM, could copy any VM, could delete or destroy any VM. And as they put those mission-critical systems in those environments, that really drives them towards thinking about what controls do I have over those systems.
Okay, and let's start on that idea of controls. We'll go back to John. CDM, continuous diagnostics and monitoring, is kind of not the law of the land, but let's say it's the policy of the land.
Sure.
And so are you doing it, and what is it you are actually monitoring? Because that's when it gets to be kind of complicated.
Well, we're very happy to partner with DHS in supporting continuous diagnostics and monitoring, and obviously we're looking at anomalous behavior in the network. That's certainly we're kind of I think certainly as opposed to maybe NGA. We have a large public footprint. We get a lot of input directly from the public. I'm sure everyone knows about open internet and the Pandora's box that's opened up for us. So, we find ourselves having lots of interactions with stakeholders and the general public, and we find that causes certain activities within our networks and our public-facing systems that bear close monitoring, and we're really happy to have the partnership and support of DHS to do that.
Now, what about this? What about monitoring for just patches? I mean, the original CDM was to make sure everything was patched on time before we got into all the network logs and anomalous activity. Do you do that basic step also?
Of course.
Okay. And how about the State Department? What's the state of CDM there, and what are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, the State Department continuous diagnostics and mitigation is alive and well. Much of what is being constructed for the entire federal government at DHS originated at the State Department about 4 to 5 years ago. We continue down that path. At the moment, we're moving from a proprietary prototypical model to more of a COTS commercial off-the-shelf solution that avails itself to upgrades and lifecycle management. Where we monitor is primarily network-centric. Over the last 18 months, we've been moving to more of a data-centric. That is actually looking at our data instances, whether they're Oracle or Microsoft-based, and ensuring that access and authentication is properly in place, and making sure we don't have data exfiltration. As we move from a infrastructure as a service to a platform as a service cloud model, we've really got to adjust our CDM platform. We've got, whether we're providing a private cloud or an infrastructure as a service cloud with a private vendor, we've been allowed over the past to place our own sensors and monitors there to actually monitor the instance. As we move to a platform as a service, that model changes now, because we have not just a trust relationship at the network level, but at the administrator level as well. We've got to ensure that our private sector partner is providing the monitoring and the assurance that we can't actually see, because with a platform as a service, we can't put our sensors on a private platform. So there's got to be a two-way communications flow in order to make sure we're both compliant with FISMA and with the new CDM dictates.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you don't have direct access to that platform, to that bare hardware, if you will. So is that something you can rely on the service level agreement to make sure they do, or do you have some mechanism to go in and check once in a while to make sure that what you want to be in place on your behalf really is there?
Well, the current NIST guidance, especially under the Rev 4, calls for annual penetration test and your normal vulnerability scans. With a platform as a service type of model, you cannot do that on a private sector architecture. It all comes down to how you negotiate and write your contract. You have to make sure that the data that you need to meet those criteria are in place, and that your private sector partner are providing that on a routine basis. If not, you're opening yourself up for criticism and audit findings saying that the senior leadership in your agency that is assuming the risk for that data that they're the steward for does not have good factual-based information to make their risk-based decisions. So we've got to make sure that is lashed up properly as we move into more of a platform as a service or software as a service type of model.
Okay, I guess at the SEC, Tom, you have a similar kind of situation maybe as the FCC, where you're the home of Dodd-Frank. Some people love it, some people are not so enamored of it. Whatever the case might be, they're at the SEC a lot.
So we have, our web traffic in particular is very high. We have well over 2 billion hits a month on our website. So we're heavily trafficked, and people are looking for our financial filing information and a lot of other data that we have. We also exchange data with other federal agencies, and we have to protect it. So what we are very much in favor of continuous monitoring, and we embrace that. And how we do that is that we look at the application and the service and the system and the risk and threat levels to it. So it starts before you ever field the application. We've been in the process of rebuilding our applications and deploying new workflow applications and other items in order for us to improve the efficiency of our staff and access to that data that we mentioned. And so it's important for us to analyze what the threat level is and how that potential threat level will be experienced. And so we analyze, and we also use a lot of monitoring software. We automate our metrics as much as we possibly can. And so we're looking for compliance to our service level agreements, as well as intrusions and other anomalies that happen throughout our network, our systems, and our applications. And through that effort, it allows us to be effective in defending against exfiltration and other issues.
Okay, good. So that exfiltration, we'll come back to that too. And Gary, at NGA, people could move cities closer together, or they could make things disappear from the maps if they could somehow get in there. So what's your CDM kind of posture?
So first, Bill brought up a great point there with NIST Special Publication 853.
One of our favorites.
Absolutely. And the ICD 503, which is a directive that replaces how we certified and accredited systems in the intelligence community, directs that we monitor all the 853 controls. As he said, Rev 4 just came out several months ago, and we're very thankful for Rev 4 because it addresses virtualization. Rev 3 did not. Through that, NGA has determined what our critical controls are throughout 853, because at the end of the day, you have to have money to monitor everything. And when the new publications came out and when the new directives came out, it didn't come with additional money. And so we have come up with our own critical control list of what we feel that we can monitor, and that critical control list is based on changes to risk posture. The controls that if we monitor and we see a change in that control, it would effectively tell us if somebody was able to move cities on a map or if any of that had been compromised. So that has been our strategy for continuous monitoring. Of course, that's paired with our insider threat detection that I'm sure we're going to get into in a little bit. But one of the challenges that we're facing with continuous monitoring is I wouldn't say it's easy to do it on your enterprise systems, but the stovepipe systems that I'm sure that we all have, it's a little more challenging to monitor a system that consists of, 5 or 6 virtualized servers in Afghanistan or, some other remote place in the world. Those are really the challenges to be able to continuously monitor those.
All right, Eric, I'm going to have a question for you to add this all up, but first we need to take a short break. Our guests today are Bill Lay, Deputy CIO for Information Assurance and the Chief Information Security Officer at the State Department. Tom Baer is Chief Information Officer at Securities and Exchange Commission. Gary Buchanan, Chief of Risk Management Division at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Eric Chu is the co-founder and president of HITRUST, and John Skidlarek is the Deputy CIO at the FCC. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin, on mitigating insider threats in virtual and cloud environments, sponsored by HITRUST and Carahsoft, here on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com.